Vancouver Canucks. First-year head coach Adam Foote takes over a team that missed the playoffs for the fourth time in the last 5 seasons and 8th time in the last 10 campaigns. One upside statistically for them, their penalty killing, third in the league, 82.6%. But besides that, Neil, I want to turn back the clock to a year ago when we did the summer cooler with Vancouver. They were coming off that second round 7-game loss to the Edmonton Oilers in 2024, and there was so much promise. They re-signed Elias Pettersson and Filip Hronek. They also retained Tyler Myers, Dakota Joshua, Teddy Bluger, and they signed as free agents Jake DeBrusk, Derek Forbert, Denton Hyman, Keefer Sherwood, and Vincent Desharnais. And yours truly, and I have fallen on the sword with this one all season going back to last year, that I thought this team had everything filled in. And then it was one fiasco after another. It was Pettersson and J.T. Miller not getting along. It was the Brock Boeser contract. It was the Thatcher Demko injury. And it was whether or not Rick Tocchet was going to extend as head coach with the team in his third and what it turned out to be final season. The team didn't start well. They never really gained traction. And I think behind Nashville, you could argue they were perhaps the most disappointing team in the NHL last year.
Oh, easily. They were in first place. It's funny, you read their statistics that you said that they missed for the 4th time in 5 seasons. And the time they made it, they ended up in first in their division. When does that ever happen? That you, 4 out of 5 years, you don't make the playoffs, but the one year you did, you hung a banner up for it. I think their whole season was just a catastrophe from one thing to the other. If it wasn't the bullying of J.T. Miller on Elias Pettersson, who made Pettersson have a horrible year. Pettersson, who was their 102 point scorer in 22-23, 2 years later dropped down to 45 points with only 15 goals after a high of 39 and 34 the year before. He really dropped off even with the new contract. And J.T. Miller was traded away for Filip Chytil. Of course, Filip Chytil goes out with another in a series of concussions that he's had during his career. That it didn't turn out too well for them. Brock Boeser, who is one of their best players easily, was allowed to try free agency, although he did sign back with the Canucks. The fact is that he could have walked away and decided not to. So there was a lot of things. The Rick Tocchet thing, was he going to come back? Was he not? Now he ends up back in Philadelphia. That's strange too. How many times does a coach just walk away and go somewhere else? And then Adam Foote now is getting his opportunity to be a head coach in the NHL. So it was a bizarre year. Quinn Hughes was hurt for a number of games for them, and he's their franchise defenseman, a former Norris Trophy winner. Not to mention the fact that they've got 3 guys on the team that all have the same name, Pettersson.
Yeah.
And they got 2 guys that have the same first and last name in Elias Pettersson, the defenseman whose middle name is Nils, and of course, the aforementioned Elias Pettersson, the former 102 point scorer.
Let's hit the offseason movement for this club. And as you mentioned, after everything that went on with Brock Boeser, he winds up staying on for 7 years at $7.25 million. They also re-signed Thatcher Demko for 3 years at $8.5 million. They also keep center RFA Aatu, who's slated in as a third center behind Pettersson and Filip Chytil. In terms of one other significant add, get Evander Kane from the Oilers, gives him a little bit more jam up front. He comes in on June 25th. They also signed P.O. Joseph, who's not qualified by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Chase Stillman, who was acquired in a trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins for goaltender Artur Silovs. So the drops, in addition to Silovs, who had that very impressive playoff run in 2024, Dakota Joshua traded to Toronto, Phil Giuseppe signed as a UFA with Winnipeg, Pius Suter, big loss there, signs as a UFA with St. Louis, and Noah Yulson signs as an unrestricted free agent with the Philadelphia Flyers. So I look at the collective on this team, Neil. Look at the forward group. Top six, not bad. Bottom six starts to thin out a little bit. I don't think their defense is bad at all with Hughes. Teamed up with Filip Hronek, who lost a lot of time last year, has one of the best and most underrated shots in the NHL from the point. There's Marcus Pettersson, Tyler Myers, Eric Forbert, who we mentioned earlier, and, of course, Elias Pettersson, the defenseman. So with that, I think there are parts here. The bar is much lower than it was a year ago. I think that works in the favor of rookie head coach Adam Foote.
I think so. And you look at their top line and look at the guys they're going to have on the power play. They got Jake DeBrusk, who had his best year last year in his career, goal scoring wise. They got to get a bounce back year out of Elias Pettersson, the center that between DeBrusk and Brock Boeser. They brought in Evander, Kane for a second line presence. Chytil has to stay healthy, hopefully, although when you say stay healthy, it's only one injury that he keeps having, which is a concussion, and pretty tough to stay away from unless you don't go anywhere near anybody. And then they got little Connor Garland, who just runs around like a little buzzsaw, annoying everybody, including Connor McDavid. He even got Connor McDavid to get suspended. And then after that, they've got reasonable depth, not great depth. They're going to be depending on that first line, DeBrusk, Pettersson, and Boeser, for sure. Evander Kane was a third line at best on Edmonton. And as we said, they're going to have to stay healthy as well.
One final note on the Canucks. Connor Garland, career year last year. He extends with the Canucks 6 years, $6 million per, and that will be effective starting with the 2026-2027 season.